Donald Trump has criticised Pope Leo several times for opposing the war in Iran, accusing him of being weak on crime and terrible on foreign policy. During a trip to Cameroon, Pope Leo condemned what he said was an endless cycle of destabilisation and death.
The masters of war pretend not to know that it takes only a moment to destroy. Yet often, a lifetime is often not enough to rebuild. They turn a blind eye to the fact that billions of dollars are spent on killing.
Jared, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Look, the Pope hasn't named any names in these comments, but they come only days after Donald Trump's criticism of him. How extraordinary is it to have this sort of disagreement playing out between two such powerful people?
Yeah, I think you could say that this is quite a surprising battle between two of the most famous Americans in the world. And it's not something that I think is playing into Donald Trump's favor at this point. We shouldn't forget that if you look at the 2024 election, a majority of Catholics actually voted for Donald Trump. This is something that undermines his base, undermines the very people who put him into office in the first place. And as much as he may say this is not something that really bothers him, and if anything, the Pope is not that important and is just too woke, you only have to look at the length of his Truth Social message posting about this to see how much this actually does bother him. This really does undermine his support and some of the key constituents of his MAGA base.
Yeah, what kind of response have we seen from some of the president's allies? The world, I think, at this stage is used to Donald Trump pushing the boundaries and posting inflammatory material online. But was this a bridge too far for some?
Very much so. I mean, the fact that you have some of his most well-known supporters now publicly talking about them distancing themselves from him is pretty quite a remarkable departure from where we were just a year ago. So the Speaker of the House, Republican Adam Johnson from Louisiana, he actually said that he told President Trump to take down his tweets or his Truth Social post showing him the president to look like Jesus Christ. And this is something that a lot of evangelical voters, but especially Catholic voters, have also said that is just a bridge too far. I can't emphasize enough just how few Republicans are willing to go public with such criticism. And the fact that so many Republicans are doing so is quite a huge departure from what we are accustomed of seeing with Donald Trump over the last decade that he's been in the public eye.
The president's criticisms of the Pope were sparked by the war in Iran. How is the conflict more broadly being viewed by Americans at this stage?
Well, we shouldn't forget that this is the first war in my lifetime, if not in a few generations now, that a U.S. president has launched without a majority of Americans in support of it. As much as the Vietnam War and the Iraq War and others were controversial by the end of their time, when they started with a majority of Americans in support of them. 2/3 to 3/4 were often in support of these wars. This is the first war that did not have majority support. Not only did Donald Trump not go to allies and partners, he did not go to the United Nations, he did not go to Congress, he also didn't go to the American people to really talk about how important this war was to him and why. And as a result, we're seeing only decreasing levels of support for this war and also for energy prices. As much as he may be good at getting attention and be good at winning political battles of the day, he's not winning the economic battle in the pocketbooks of Americans.
How do you expect this to play into the midterm elections later this year?
Well, we still have some time before the midterm elections, but what I find really interesting is just how the number of Republicans distancing themselves from Donald Trump seems to be increasing with practically every day at this point. And I don't think this is merely him going a bridge too far with his Truth Socials. I think this is because Republicans can see it's in their self-interest to distance themselves from an unpopular president. Now, what we see with Donald Trump is that he has power in the Republican primaries, in the Republicans amongst themselves, but he doesn't necessarily have power in the general election. So as we get closer and closer to the general election and further away from the primary election, so the Republicans' own elections, then we are seeing his power dissipate. So I think that we are seeing the start of what's more to come, of more Republicans really divorcing themselves from Donald Trump for the first time in almost a decade.